Okay, so this is the offensive lineman video. This is probably going to be a little bit less exciting just because there's less stats to talk about. There's, not a ton that they do. But before we get into the offensive lineman, I want to go over a couple of things. Recently, I've been going over the channel and I've realized that people still want to see draft content. They haven't really gotten over the hype yet, which is understandable. There's not a lot going on right now, so you want to soak in as much of that draft content as you can. So I'm gonna start doing some prospect breakdowns. I really didn't do a deep dive into every prospect. I kind of gave a quick opinion, a quick grade, but I didn't really go in depth and kind of get all the information that I could to understand these draft prospects and where they would fit in the team and why we picked them. So I'm going to start doing every other day, alternating this series and kind of a prospect breakdown series. So I'll start with Jeffrey Okuda tomorrow, and then I'll do whatever position breakdown, and then I'll do DeAndre Swift, and I'll just keep going down the list until we're out of prospects and positions. So I'll be getting into that. I'll be doing this video a little bit differently. There's a lot of offensive linemen that people don't know about. So I'm kind of gonna do more of the. I'm kind of gonna do more of the starters, and I'll do a couple of the depth pieces that I think could have an impact this season with the Lions. But I don't want to list 5 guards that are never gonna see the field. So I'm gonna kind of work my way left to right across the offensive line. And I'll give you a little bit of information, kind of tell you what to expect for next season. And so let's get into it. But before we do that, if you do enjoy the content, consider liking the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I appreciate everybody that does so. And with that being said, let's get into it. So our left tackle is going to be Taylor Decker, as long as he's healthy. He's been the starting left tackle since we drafted him in 2016 out of Ohio State. He had a labrum injury 1 year, but it hasn't hindered his performance in the rest of his career. So that's happened a long time ago. But other than that, he hasn't missed a ton of games. He's a very reliable left tackle. He doesn't get beat a ton. Last season he was ranked the number 10, or he was ranked in the top 10 for left tackles in the NFL. So obviously, Pro Football Focus thinks that he's a very good grade. He graded out very highly for the Detroit Lions, and he's a good left tackle. He deserves what he's being paid. He kind of has lived up to that the first round draft hype. He's protected Stafford for several years now. He does a very good job at it. And he's a very good left tackle. Again, there's not a whole lot to say other than my opinion and kind of where they rank some of the stuff that they're up against. Taylor Decker is one of the two top ranked top 10 offensive linemen that the Lions have at their respective positions. I'll get into the other one in a little bit. So moving on to guard, the guards are kind of the wild card spots for the Lions because we lost Graham Glasgow. We don't really have that big name guard that's going to come in that we can bring in and just plug in, have him, go to work, and have a reliable and well-known, I guess, player. But I do believe that Tyrell Crosby will be the starting left guard next season. Tyrell Crosby came in for a couple games when there was injuries last season. He played very well. He didn't give up a lot of sacks, didn't give up a lot of pressures. He played his first game last season was against the Chargers, and I don't think that they allowed a sack that game, which was very impressive considering the Chargers' defensive line is very, very talented. It wasn't really graded very highly. He didn't play a ton. He has very limited snaps, but in the snaps he did play, he did a very good job at protecting Matthew Stafford. And I think that he's one of those veteran presence now. He kind of knows how everything's going to work. We have a lot of depth at the guard position, but we don't have a lot of good players. So I think Tyrell Crosby it will start, and I think he'll do a fairly good job. I don't think he'll be as good as Graham Glasgow because Graham Glasgow was a very good guard. And he ranked very highly. He actually was ranked in the top 10, but he's no longer a Lion, so I can't count that. So I don't think that he'll necessarily replace Graham Glasgow and play at the level that Graham did. But I think he'll be serviceable. I think he won't be a liability. He'll be able to protect Stafford, and when you're a guard, you kind of have a little bit more help because you're in between two players. so you can kind of get help from the center or the left tackle depending on how many players are rushing. But even if he doesn't get help, I think that he in college he was a very good offensive lineman. He was an first team All Pac-12. I mean, he protected Marcus Mariota. He played in the national championship. He's played in big games. He knows he's a very good left tackle, left guard, very serviceable. So I would expect everything to be okay there. Um, so moving on to the center, you know who it's gonna be. It's gonna be Frank Ragnow. He ranked the 6th highest graded tackle by Pro Football Focus last season. I mean, ever since he was okay as a right guard his rookie season, but when he moved to center, everything jumped up immensely. I mean, he got so much better as a center than he is a guard, which is understandable because at Arkansas he did play center. He can play right guard, but I think he's much better as a center. He's just more comfortable there, and I think he plays much better at that position. He's probably the Lions' best offensive lineman. He's gonna be here for a long time. He's gonna kind of anchor this offensive line. It was a very good pick. It wasn't flashy, but when we picked him, but it was a very good pick, and I think that he's gonna contribute to the Lions and be our offensive, I guess, kind of the captain of that offensive line, the leader for several years to come. At right guard, I think that Jonah Jackson, guard out of Ohio State, the one we drafted in the 3rd round, will start at that right guard position. He was ranked the number 2 guard by Pro Football Focus, and we got him in the 3rd round. He only allowed 17 pressures in the last 2 seasons in the Big Ten when he played for the Rutgers and the Ohio State Buckeyes. So he's very good. He's very technically sound. He doesn't allow a lot of pressure, and he doesn't get penalties because he's very good with his hand use. I think we traded up because we needed a guard, and I think that we can plug in Jonah Jackson day one, and I think that he can have an impact. I think that he'll be a good guard in the NFL. He'll be very reliable for Matthew Stafford. He'll be able to hold down kind of that guy on one of those defensive tackles. He'll be able to, just basically, protect Stafford as, you're supposed to do. I think he'll be a very good offensive guard. Moving to the right tackle, it'll be Big V. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name because I will butcher it. But he, this was kind of a very questionable signing for the Lions. We paid him a lot of money, and he hasn't really played a ton. He is a Super Bowl champion with the Eagles. He did grade out higher than Rick Wagner in both the pass game and the run game. But his sample size is very limited, but based on what he has shown, he can be a very good tackle in the NFL, at least better than Rick Wagner. People like Rick Wagner. I didn't think he was that good of a guard. I just felt like he got beat a lot. And I know he's going up against the Khalil Macks and the Danielle Hunters and, the really good pass rushers, but I just feel like he didn't really hold his own that well. And, I mean, he got beat a lot. But I don't know how, Big V is going to slot into the offensive line, but it can't really be, I don't want to say it can't be worse, but I would expect it to be very similar to Rick Wagner and kind of what he did as a Lion. So last season, the Lions gave up 43 sacks. They ranked 11th in the NFL, like as an offensive line in total. So they were above average. I would expect that probably to drop a little bit down into the teens somewhere, just because Graham Glasgow will be tough to replace, and we don't really know what's going to happen with Big V and Tyrell Crosby. Those guys are kind of, they haven't started in the NFL a ton. Jonah Jackson is a rookie. Tyrell Crosby hasn't had a ton of playing time, and Big V was a rotational tackle for the Eagles. I mean, we just don't really know how they're going to play out as starters, when they play a full season. So I would kind of expect it to drop a little bit. The offensive line play will probably be a little bit worse. But I think with Decker and Ragnow anchoring that offensive line, I don't think will be horrible. And then we'll go into the depth a little bit. We drafted Logan Stenberg in the 4th round. He's a very good run blocking guard. So I think he'll come in situations where we need to run the ball. We need to, choose some clock. I think he'll be very good at that. But he's just very undisciplined. He had 24 penalties in his last 2 seasons. and I think that's really gonna hurt him because Patricia doesn't mess with penalties. I mean, no coach wants to, but I mean, you're not gonna play if you're gonna hurt the Lion. Or you're not gonna play in the NFL if you're gonna hurt the team you're blocking for. So he's got to get some of those things figured out. But if he can get those figured out, I think he can be a very good guard in the NFL too. He's a nasty player. He plays with tenacity, and he's just a fierce player. Nobody wants to play against him, and I think that he could come in and situation. He'll be a situational, rotational kind of offensive lineman that can come in if there's injury or just if we need to run the ball. I think he's better at that than Jonah Jackson. Not that Jonah Jackson's bad, but I think that he just specializes in, or I think Stenberg specializes in running and run blocking, and I think that he'll be very good at that. So I think that he'll come in, for those kind of situations. Those are kind of the 6 offensive linemen that I would expect to get a lot of playing time, a majority of the playing time next season. Again, not really a lot of stats. I know this video probably isn't the most exciting. It probably won't do very well, but I wanted to go over the offensive linemen because, they are, people on the Lions. They're arguably the most important. They're just not the most flashy position on the Lions. So I wanted to go over it, kind of get it out of the way. Tomorrow I'll be bringing in a Jeff Okudah prospect breakdown if, people want to see that. Because, I just feel like people aren't really over the draft yet, over that draft hype. So I'll be bringing that out tomorrow, and we'll kind of do a rotation just so it's a little bit fresher each time. But with that being said, thank you for watching the video. If you want to like the video or subscribe, take 2 seconds out of your day to do so. It would mean the world to me. It would make my day for you to take 2 seconds out of yours and hit a subscribe button. So just consider doing that if you enjoy the content. I'll come back if there's any Lions news before tomorrow, and if not, I'll see you guys tomorrow with a Jeff Okudah prospect breakdown. Thanks, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.